Welcome back to the Man Cave, everybody. It's time for the 74th episode of the ManTFup podcast. I'm Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
And before we go any further, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and follow. We are absolutely everywhere as you're watching, whether it's a clip on social media or the full video on YouTube, and something hits you and you're just like, hey, I don't feel the same way, or I do feel the same way, please just drop your comments as you proceed along the video. We absolutely love to see and read how you're feeling about the things that we're talking about. Today, it's going to be about life skills. You know, I live for a good post on the gram or on TikTok, and this one popped up on my feed, and I immediately sent it to Lenny. It was 15 life skills kids need to learn before leaving home, right? The first one, how to manage a budget, how to clean a home, how to cook, how to do laundry, how to spend wisely and save, how to handle failure and rejection, how to be organized and plan, how to manage your time, how to swim, how to drive, how to stand up for oneself, how to self-motivate and self-set goals, how to find a job, how to communicate effectively, how to build a flat pack. The funny thing was a lot of people didn't know what a flat pack was. I didn't realize it's basically anything you get shipped to your house in a box, like furniture, like IKEA, right? Being able to put it together using the directions and the Allen wrench they sent you, because that's usually all you're getting.
Yes.
But 15 to me, great things. You know, I saw how to swim, and again, I take that for granted because
we live in Florida. Everybody swims.
Yeah, but we also have the highest drowning rate in children, 4 and under, too. So obviously not everybody swims, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But definitely a skill that every adult should definitely have, considering you can drown in a bathtub or a bowl of soup.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which is crazy. Driving, another one that, I think people my age take for granted, but not realizing that a lot of young kids now,
that's a big thing.
They have no desire
to
learn how to drive.
They don't want to learn how to drive. I know a lot of kids that are like, that they don't have their license. I mean,
and you're talking like 17, 18, 19, 20, like kids that are beyond having license age.
And these are not city kids who can get on a bus and go to wherever you need to go. This is, you got to drive.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I was actually thinking about that being a part of this list. Like, it said how to drive. And I was like, I think a lot of children with any kind of means learn how to drive, whether they actually want to or don't, is a different situation. I think if you have parents of your generation or of my generation, you're going to try to teach your kids how to drive because it's empowering and it encourages independence.
Yeah, but I think it's anxiety.
Oh, no, that's for sure why. But can I tell you something? You know how many kids from the burbs have no idea how to use public transportation?
Oh, yeah. Well, that goes without
But that to me is another skill. And it was funny. I started thinking about it and I was like, did I ever? Because the public transit system in where we are, Miami-Dade, Broward County, not my fave. I took the Metro Mover once. And it was funny because it was when I was coming to get my schedule at the University of Miami. So before my freshman year started, I came down with a friend of mine. My mom couldn't make it down, specifically to meet with my advisor, to set my schedule, and to just take a look at the campus before I actually came to school. And it was funny because we were staying on South Beach, of course, because who wouldn't stay on South Beach, right? And he didn't want to come with me to my school. So I took a cab, I think, to get out to UM. But it was difficult. This was pre-Uber days, so you couldn't just drop a pin and let somebody know where to get you. So getting back to the beach, they recommended I take the Metro.
Yeah.
Because there's a Metro station right across
from the school.
But still a walk.
But it drops you on the side of 95.
Oh, boy. Not only that, it dropped me in downtown Miami before it looked the way that it looks now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Then you got to figure out which bus goes to the
by
beach.
the courthouse on top of it. You know what I mean? And I was like, it was just interesting. But it's funny because when I thought about, that was my first experience with public transportation in Florida. But when I think about it now, I used to take the bus, not frequently, but when I lived in Massachusetts as a kid, we would take the bus to get into Boston. We would take, they had, local buses or whatever. It was still a 45-minute ride. And I will never forget, my mom put my cousin and I on a bus to go see my grandmother. So we lived in a place called New Bedford, Fairhaven, whatever. It's over the bridge from Cape Cod. My grandmother had a house in Falmouth Heights. And you could take a bus. And so my mom put our bikes on the bus, put us on the bus, and just sent us over.
See ya.
You know, we got off and then we rode our bikes to my
grandma's
grandmother's house. I mean, but this is,
Yeah.
it's still probably a 20-mile or so bike ride from where the bus dropped us. And I'm saying this now, and I know there's a parent watching that is like, like the Cuban parents in Miami, my God, would have a fit hearing this. You know what I'm saying? Latino parents, I think in general, they don't, that's not something they're doing with their kids. And we were probably, I don't know, 12. 13. I mean, we were together. We had the buddy system, and it was during the day. It wasn't like we rode our bikes at night.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, ooh, I kind of like wanted to pat myself on the back when I was remembering this because I was like, okay, like that's the era that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And
Bookification of America.
I couldn't wait to learn how to drive. My mother taught me how to drive when I was probably 13 or 14.
We're having an event Saturday. We're taking 2 cars. Joey's going to be driving Nestor
Why?
because I'm going to be driving another car.
Okay. Oh, no,
So,
but Joey's
yeah.
your youngest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Joey can drive,
He's
right?
15.
Okay. But he has his permit.
He's got his permit.
Yeah, and Nestor is...
And he can drive. He got his permit on the day after his birthday.
Yeah. You guys are car people,
Now you have
though.
to wait a year.
You guys are car people.
Yeah, but
Did Miranda want to get her license?
yeah.
Okay, she was
yeah.
good too. Okay.
Yeah.
But like they have
my
friends.
kids are-
But you said but they have friends.
I
that-
also force my kids to not use the map because
you want them to learn their way around.
yeah.
Well, no.
It's very, very learned helplessness. And I get if you're trying to find a house inside a neighborhood, but you better know how to get to the main roads.
Well, not only that, there are many children that actually should be added to the list. They gave us 15 great things, and we're adding to it now.
Yes.
Learning how to maneuver on public transportation, learning how to at least get to and from your home without using, Waze or Google Maps. But again, me growing up, we grew up in different time periods, but still a lot of similarities. You had to be able to tell somebody how to get to your house.
Yes.
Right? So you'd be like, you're going to, go to the 4-way stop sign. You're going to make a right on this. And 9 times out of 10, you knew the streets.
Yes.
You'd be like, you're going to make a right on Quaker Lane. You're going to follow that all the way to the end. You could tell people landmarks, all of these different things to look for. There's going to be a street light that's out. You know what I mean? Right past that, you're going to see a little, one-way tiny road to the left. That's where you're going to turn down, especially because I lived in the sticks.
Kids don't know that.
At all. They
don't
could
even know.
not tell you how to get to their house.
There could be a park on the corner of their street. They don't know it's there.
Or they don't know that that's the name of the park that's on the corner of their street.
Yes.
It's like an adultism. Oh, you live by TY Park. I do? Like, I know there's a park there, but I didn't know the name of it. It's just, that's crazy to me because if you were ever in a situation and needed to get home, you lost your phone or whatever, how do you tell somebody how to get you there?
Yeah,
You know what
how
I
do
mean?
you know they're not taking you somewhere else?
Well, facts.
You hop in an Uber and they take, it used to be a big thing with cabs, cabs would take some
The long
fucked
way.
up
Yeah, yeah.
way.
To upcharge you.
Yeah, to get the
Yeah.
the shit up. And I'm like,
You're going the wrong way.
motherfucker, get on 595, go to this exit, get off,
Well, it's funny. So I have a friend. Her name is Gati, and she's brilliant. Brilliant. She's an executive producer at a local news station. Youngest person. Again, if you give her highways, she's lived in Miami, Lenny, her entire life. She has no idea the difference between 95, the Palmetto, the Dolphin, 595, the Turnpike. No clue. And I'm like, Gati, are you kidding? Like, how have you lived? I didn't grow up here. I could tell you, I could still go home. Like, I could tell you how to get to my old house from Logan Airport, from Boston Airport. I could still tell you to this day through a city that is notorious for having the longest construction project in the history of cities, which is the Big Dig in Boston. And I could still get you from Boston to New Bedford, Massachusetts, like off of memory. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that, and I can get you around, and part of that is my job. And now I'm so grateful that I had to do traffic at certain points in my radio career because you have to give alternate routes, right? So sometimes you're reading something and you see an accident just popped up, and you're like, well, take 7th Avenue or do this or da. And to me, like I'm proud of the fact that I can do that because I've realized, to your point, in driving with younger people or with friends, or even Uber drivers, no clue. If it wasn't for their phone, would have no idea how to get you around.
No. Well, most Uber drivers are like, don't even know how to speak English. So it's like, what do you expect with Uber drivers?
Well, yeah, but hold on one second. Most cab drivers in Miami, but they know how to get around. No.
Yeah, I mean, the older ones, yeah.
They might drive crazy, but let me tell you something. A Haitian cab driver in Miami can get you anywhere, anywhere you need to go.
Yes, that goes without saying. But back to the skills.
Very slowly, though. That's his point.
Back to the skills that are being lost and not taught to kids. And, one of the comments you brought up, which I thought was extremely funny, is why would you stress the kids out and not let them learn this on their own?
Oh, yeah, no. I had to screenshot a particular comment because that's usually where the entertainment really lies. Like, the stuff that pops up on your timeline is great. Highly recommend hitting the comments. Always. That's the first place I go. When something is intriguing, just as the post, I'm like, oh, the comments are going to be great on this one. So it's the first place I go. And sure enough, I didn't have to scroll down but 10 comments and I hit, how about learning as you grow instead of putting this pressure on the kid and giving them lots of anxiety? Wouldn't being lost in your city give you anxiety? Wouldn't having no mode of transportation give you anxiety? Wouldn't being broke and not being able to afford an Uber or a Lyft and then having to figure out how to get around give you anxiety? What happens when your kid decides they want to go on a trip to Paris and the only way to get around is via public transportation?
Yeah.
And they've never once stepped foot on a bus or a subway.
This is really entertaining because I grew up with just my mom. She took care of everything for me, blah, 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 blah. But in the meantime, I learned how to cook. I learned how to clean my house. I learned how to do my laundry. I learned all of these skills along the way because as a child, you should be interacting with a parent, and your parent should be interacting with their child. And if your parent is cooking dinner, your child's going to be sitting there watching and being curious about, what is this? And, oh, that's hot. Don't touch it. I mean, this is basic life skills. So if your kids aren't learning these basic life skills, it's the parents who don't know them.
But that to me is what's a little bit frightening. Somebody else commented right underneath that one. You must be kidding me. We as adults still need to master these life skills. Nobody's talking
about
mastering them. It's having a basic knowledge, which you then perfect, right? Like every kid messes up the laundry at least once in their life, right? You throw something in that didn't need to be in there. I'm now the most OCD separator of laundry colors on the planet, right? Like I have nudes that go together. I wash all of my grays in different together. I wash my blues like in separate. Like I have 22 piles when I do my laundry.
I'm a laundry king. I have one basket. Every bit of my clothes goes in it, and I dump it in the fucking washing machine. I dump the shit in behind it.
What you see, what you see is what you get. This is what Lenny wears every day. Jeans
no, I mean
I take
my button downs to get.
Exactly. So what you're throwing in the laundry is jeans and a t-shirt.
Jeans, t-shirts, socks, underwear.
Yeah, like
all at the same time.
It's all
towels, sheets, everything.
And he also is a creature of habit and loves the same denim. So I'm sure you're not worried about them sitting on top of something and bleeding because they've been washed 77,000 times.
Yeah.
But the point is, nobody's saying you have to master it, but it's having a foundational knowledge of these things. Again, you talked about cooking. I could make macaroni and cheese and hot dogs by the time I was probably 7 or 8. Yeah. I loved that. But I also had an incident thinking I was cute making breakfast in bed for my mom and my stepdad where they got up a little later than I thought and I had already put cream cheese on the bagel and I put the bagel with the cream cheese in the toaster thinking I could read. You know what I'm saying? But I was like probably 6 or 7. You learn.
That's how you learn.
As the smoke detector goes on, everybody got up though. Surprise! I made you breakfast. Definitely never did that again. But it's like, you take the initiative as kids. You hope you don't burn the house down while you do it. But my mom then realized, oh, she likes to cook. So let me engage her a little bit more when I'm in the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? And you learn things. And I, again, as a kid, always felt empowered when I was able to make my family dinner or do something that I looked at as an adult task. Yeah. It wasn't like my household relied on me to do it. It's not 1892. You know what I'm saying? But that's not that long ago. Like when you think about the grand scheme of time, it's only in the last 50, 60, 70 years that we have literally removed the burden of contributing to a household by children monumentally.
I don't even think it's been that long. Tell you the truth. I
think the 60s and the 70s, it became like...
Yeah,
I think you still taught them... No, but I'm talking about, Lenny, I'm talking about like when you go to the 1800s, everybody had to households didn't run. There were 10 siblings running around and the oldest was doing laundry, was cooking because, if they weren't doing those things, they had a job in a factory. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a different time. Majority of people were very poor and were trying to make sure that everybody got fed and was clothed. You knew how to darn clothes. You knew how to make clothes.
You have to be careful now because if if you have children in the Midwest and they're out in the farm helping you, somebody's going to report you for child labor laws.
Mm-hmm. No,
that's where we're coming.
But again, it said talking about, managing money and things like that, right? Like just a basic understanding. We were having a conversation before we started this podcast. Again, growing up, my family had a business. So my mom, this just made me think about all kinds of things when I was reading the comments. So my mom always worked, but she luckily worked for, when she worked for an airline, it was like a family-run airline. It was a commuter airline. Mm-hmm. So she would take me to work with her. She was a single parent. So I was a latchkey kid sometimes, but not really. Like I was usually all up underneath my mother, but I was running around airports and hangars and, playing, I was literally the dummy doll for the flight attendants when they were doing their first aid training. So I'd walking around with ace bandages on my head and splints on my legs, and I got to do the whole wing thing, and I got to go out the slide and all of that. So I had a very cool upbringing, but that was how my mom was able to keep, an eye on me, not have to pay for childcare. She was lucky in that way. When she went to work for my family, we owned liquor stores. So again,
That explains.
Yes, it does. It explains a lot. If you can't really see the corner over there, but we've got a nice little selection. But even when I was there, I always wanted to do something. Kids don't want to be bored. They need to be occupied. So what did I do?
You didn't have a phone then.
Well, no.
See, that's today. Every parent, when they're cooking dinner, their kid is on the phone.
But again, that's because you allowed them to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
So here's the deal. I would go to the store. I would dust bottles. My grandfather would pay me a penny a bottle. Boy, you trust and believe me. I counted every damn bottle that I dusted, and I'd get my little money. And then as I got older, my mother would actually let me count the deposit. Do you know how it was like that to me was like Uncle Scrooge's money bank. If you remember like DuckTales, like that I used to
Didn't they ban that?
What? DuckTales?
All that whole Scrooge thing.
Uncle Scrooge?
All of it. It's all banned.
No,
banned.
It's not. That can't be. But anyway, he had a money pit and he loved going in it. And I would get up on Saturday mornings and I would count my piggy bank change and I would roll my quarters and all of these. The point is, I liked having money. I liked counting money. I liked balancing. I had a savings account from the time I was born. Again, none of this had an excessive amount of money in it. It's not about privilege. Yeah. These were just things that my mother and my family prioritized.
Management also goes to, if your kid gets a 50-cent allowance when they're 4 years old.
Yeah, that I didn't get taught.
But whatever. If that's money skills. If you get a 50-cent allowance and you save it, you can buy something that you really want.
Yeah.
But if you spend it on candy every time you get it, you're never going to be able to buy that thing you really want. So, there's a lot of skills that are just basic skills that have gone away from our children that it's unbelievable. And I force my kids. I force them. I mean, my kids do their own laundry. They're not great with money. Joey's much better with money than Miranda is, but they both understand it, where it comes from, how it is to make it.
And they enjoy making it.
Yes. They enjoy making it, and but they, I force them to look at landmarks and to use the roads and understand where they are, at least in their state, north, south, east, and west. Ask any kid what north, south, east, and west is. They guarantee you they're like, huh?
Oh, yeah. Or even, like, the other thing I know, my mom was always big on, avenues go north-south, streets go east-west. Like, she, even in a city that wasn't hers, like New York, she could always explain it. And there were times when I would look at her and go, I don't know what you're talking about. And she'd be like,
you will.
North-south, east-west. So if you're lost, you know what I mean, and you need to find an avenue.
Cute that you did that exactly opposite.
Where we're at.
East-west, north-south.
They don't know that. They have no idea where this
I do, and it was just, you did
I'm
did it perfectly backwards.
I'm completely discombobulated in this office right now. But if I was out on the road, I could tell you
yes.
95 runs north-south, 595 runs east-west.
Yeah, very good.
Does it ever turn? No, it always runs east-west. Okay. I didn't know, like, because it curves sometimes, but I guess it
turns into 75.
Okay.
Or the Sawgrass.
But anyway, to your point, though, somebody else commented, my mother cried on her deathbed because she never insisted that I learn to drive. I'm 47 and I still can't. I have a driver. That's a place of privilege. But the person goes on to say, please teach your children to drive. Please, with exclamation points.
Yeah.
And I love that because as a 47-year-old who still hasn't learned how, they are imploring others to teach. Can I tell you something? Whether you have Uber or not, knowing how to drive could save your life and your friends' lives, right? We all get into bad situations. And if there's at least somebody there who is sober, like that was the reason why my mother taught me how to drive when I was younger. I always hung out with older people and she didn't have her head up her ass. She already knew, like, stop pretending like you don't know what kids do in high school. Like, just knock it off.
Mm-hmm.
And don't act like your children are the only children on the planet that aren't going to do exactly what you did in high school.
Fuck up.
Or have friends that fuck up.
Yeah.
So empower your kid to be the kid that can get their friends or at least themselves out of a fucked up situation. And that was what she did. She, she just wanted me to have a skill set. If I ever felt unsafe and I couldn't get in touch with her and I needed to get out of a jam, that I could. Or if, God forbid, somebody was sick or, you have a grandmother or a kid and you need to get to a hospital and there's not an adult around, but there's car keys.
Yeah.
How do you handle this? You know what I'm saying?
I think every 10-year-old should know.
And literally the first day I got in my driver's ed car, the driving instructor was like, let's get on the highway. Like, you're good. I was the first person to take my driving test, parallel parked, bam, bam, bam. Like, no problem. To me, what do you mean? Shut up. Shots fired. I moved to Miami and forgot how to drive, apparently. I moved to when in Rome. No, I'm the
tourist.
I am the illest parallel parker on the fucking planet.
Tourist.
Kiss my ass. I can parallel park with the best of them. I can also drive, so whatever. Like this coming from the man who literally listens to Mozart on 1,000 going 112 on a side street. Whatever. Don't start with me. But when have I crashed? Shut your face. Somebody else said cooking and cleaning needs to be taught to both boys and girls. Facts. Swimming is the only one taught in school. I don't know where you live. I wish swimming was taught in all schools because it's not, and it definitely should be for sure. But yeah, again, they've taken driver's ed out of a lot of public high schools. I want to say there's only like 1 or 2 left in South Florida that actually have driver's ed available to high school students on premise, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. What else? I mean, the commentary though, like I love to see people, that are supporting these things, but it's the amount of folks that are kind of like, oh, you're putting so much pressure on parents to be perfect and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, to be perfect. No. That's just called parenting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, nobody's saying you have to teach your kids the same thing as every other parent, but life skills. It's teaching your kids life skills, whatever your life skills are. And life skills are not how to use the cell phone. That's not a life skill. So if you're one of those parents that can't get anywhere without Google Maps, you might want to, expand on your thought process so that your kids are not handicapped in case the internet goes down.
Well, not only that, you know what else is frustrating too is like I keep seeing people talking about on different posts, there should be a class where they teach kids these things in school, right? They teach them how to sew and they teach them how to change a tire. And I'm like, bro, it's called home ec and shop. I'm like,
gone.
Yeah, but how long? I'm not that old. Like, here's the deal.
That's the
like I'm 42. Like in 20 years, we've forgotten, and these are like grown ass people. I'm like, where did you go to school? Like, I know, again, I grew up in a blue collar area in southeastern Massachusetts. A lot of tradesmen, plumbers, electricians, welders. We had multiple, oh my goodness, the word is escaping me. What are those called? High schools that are vocational schools.
Yeah.
We had multiple vocational high schools to choose from in my area. And then obviously you had your standard kind of college prep public high schools as well, and then private schools. But we had shop in middle school. Like, we had home ec and shop in my middle school, which was in a tiny ass rural town.
Yeah, we did too.
My middle school was one little strip.
Listen,
right? Like,
we had it in my middle school in Aventura, in North Miami Beach. We had a shop class. That was my favorite class.
Like, and
we took an entire car apart in my shop class.
Yeah. Did the girls get to take it apart too?
Whoever was in the class.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but like that
everybody could.
Everybody, yeah. you flipped and flopped. Like, if you had home ec one semester, you had shop
definitely believe that young ladies and young men should both be taught how to check their oil or what not to do. Don't open your radiator if your car's overheating. When
I have a problem, I call Lenny.
The basic stuff. Basic stuff. You have to take care of your own stuff.
Well, yeah, I think the other issue is like, when I was growing up, I was lucky enough, like, I would drive, I drove my mom's car, I drove new vehicles, so I didn't really have to worry about a lot of that. But I found out later on, my mother worked at a gas station. Like, my mom can change a tire, my mom can change oil, my mom can check all the fluid. I was like, wait, what, lady? Like, this is the woman who is like Jacqueline Onassis, you know what I'm saying? But this was one of her summer jobs or whatever, and that just blew my mind. She was like, yeah, and you should know how to, like, how to do
check your
this
air
too.
in your tires. Everybody can get a flat tire. I don't care how new your car is.
Yeah, but the other problem is most people now, and this goes for adults as well, don't know how to actually check the pressure on a gauge. They need an automatic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking. The electronic air pumps that tell you, and they go beep 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 when your pressure.
What does it mean when that dial moves?
But
there was a meme we used to bust Nick's chops about when he was like 18, 19, because he had a beard, and it's like you can't have a beard if you can't change a tire, And he's since learned.
But I don't understand. I like that though. You can't have a beard if you can't change a tire. That's good. I just don't understand though the dialogue where people actually question the validity of children needing to know these things. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that so many people can sit in here and say, instead of giving them so much anxiety, being stuck on the side of a highway at 2:00 in the morning with a flat tire in the middle of nowhere with no cell service is a very real situation, and you don't think that's going to cause more anxiety than teaching the kid how to change the tire? You know what I'm saying? Like, or at least people don't even know where their spare tire is. People don't know the difference between a donut and an actual full-size tire, or how long you can drive on a donut. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy to me that we have this sort of narrative floating around that people are so they're sensitive because they're incompetent. Like, do you not realize that you handicap young people? Like, the more things you know, the more empowered you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the more confident you are in any situation you walk into, whether it's an emergency situation, it's a business situation, it's an event or a social situation. You know what I mean? And catering to young people with kid gloves doesn't do anything but hinder them. I'm not talking about the tough love. I mean, you and I.
Yeah, but it's also it's also manners. Respect for older people. Mm-hmm. There's a list that goes on for miles, and it's these are basic things that I think are basic things for your kids to know. If I was at a dinner table when I was a kid and I did something wrong, my father would look at me, and I knew if I didn't stop, his hand was coming right across my face. And I've taught my kids manners at a dinner table, but not through that same thing. I've never knocked them off a stool. But it's the same. It's just everything, Kimmy. Today with kids, it's like it's scary. Even in schools, with what you were talking about on your show, with the not
cursive.
Cursive, yeah. I mean, it's like, what, are you kidding me?
But again, one of the comments that I brought up to you, and it's all related, was the person that wanted to argue with every individual that thought cursive should in fact be taught. Whether it's a skill you use on a daily basis or not, they're just like, it's a fundamental life tool. It's just one of those things you should know how to do. When a document says print your name here and then provide a signature, those two things should look different. You know what I mean? Like one should be a printed legible version of your name, you know,
and one should be a
cursive, even if it's scribbles. It should be, you know,
version
at least the first letter should resemble something you learned in penmanship.
Yes.
And there was a gentleman who was so adamant about this not being necessary. And a friend of mine got into a fairly heated, you know, online debate with him and finally pulled away and was like, listen, in my household, the more education, the better. That was always the mantra, you know. And he was like, everybody in my family can write in cursive. We can all read cursive, and we're going to keep it that way. It's worked just fine for us. If you want to limit yourself in that way, cool. But to me, it was just like...
Have you ever picked up a birthday card or an anniversary card or anything like that in Walgreens? If you can't read cursive, you're not going to read half the cards.
Well, not even that. I mean, I write mine like that, but you're not going to... But the thing is, though, Len, it's... First of all, a lot of people's penmanship isn't legible. But the point is, it shouldn't look like a foreign language to you. No. Like, English written in cursive should not look like French or Chinese to any American who grew up reading and writing in English, right? Like...
It should look like English.
Well, no, and then people were talking about the Constitution, and they were talking about other, you know, important documents that are all handwritten in cursive. And somebody's like, oh, well, they've, you know, translated it and they put it in your textbooks. And it's like, yeah, but if you can't read it for yourself, how do you know that what they're translating is exactly what it says word for word? Like, that's just one of those things. It's laziness, Lenny. It's laziness. And the fact that we're okay with laziness in this way is mind-boggling to me. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, that narrative, oh, we don't need it, so why teach it, is one of those things where you go, okay.
The only thing that person is going to need is meds. Because if they're lazy about writing cursive, they're lazy about everything in their life, and they're going to destroy themselves, and they're going to be on meds. And you know,
but again, Len, this is...
That's that... But laziness across the board.
But we've taken it out of, like, the reason why it was a conversation on my radio show was because California just passed legislation to reintroduce it in their grade school curriculum. Yeah. And so I asked, is this something we should consider in Florida? Should this be a national mandate? Is this something that we should be considering? And I would say an overwhelming majority of the people were like, yes. I don't know why they took it out. No. And again, most of the people that were commenting were 30s and above, so they grew up. But I had a listener call in. Her husband is a probate attorney, 29 years old, clearly highly educated, never learned cursive. And she said he struggles reading a lot of documents because, especially when you're dealing with elderly people who hand wrote their will to make sure it says exactly how they, like, my grandfather was one of those people, you know what I mean? And if there was an amendment, he was the one going in and scratching it off, rewriting and initialing. He has a tough time deciphering what people, this is his job.
Listen, writing in general is something you learn when you're in pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. Mm-hmm. Writing your alphabet, writing your letters, learning to write, that is part of fine motor skills for children. Why would you take that away from them? Why would you take that? What's the point of eliminating that? You know, that's just, forget about what you're writing, forget about any of that. That's teaching kids a skill that they're going to have. That's their, you know, whether you have good penmanship, bad penmanship, you write like sign like a doctor, or you sign perfectly. It's those things are taught, and I mean, it's just the brain communication to the hand.
But again,
I don't get it. Why it's wrong.
We have these arguments, and people sit back and they yell and they scream about American education floundering, right? And how, you know, children are lazy and all of these other things. Like, here's the deal. If you go to Asia, those kids all have phones.
Yeah.
Those kids all have the same tech, if not more advanced tech. The difference is what their parents and what their society prioritizes as far as education and what are the necessary life skills to make you the most highly effective, efficient, contributing member of your society. It's why when we had the conversation even about college admissions here, and we're talking about Asian students who felt that they were being discriminated against, there's a bigger conversation to have there, because when you're talking about the number of high-level academically achieving Asian students in this country, like, let's have the conversation about what home is like, what those households are like, what after school looks like with these kids, why they are performing at such a high level and literally competing with each other to a degree to which, like, it's almost unfair to their own community, because when you're talking about things like affirmative action and they're letting a certain number of people in, and everybody in that one particular competitive category is achieving at this level, it makes it difficult. You know what I'm saying? But that's just a part of their culture that they have not chosen to give up for the sake of,
a friend of mine,
what is it called when you acclimate to society? Yeah, that they haven't given up in the name of that.
A friend of mine the other day met a Chinese girl who has only been here like 2 months. She spoke perfect English. Perfect English. You couldn't even tell that she wasn't born here.
Yeah.
That's got to say something. I bet you she could probably write in cursive too.
Probably.
Because, in China, that's something they teach in elementary school.
That's what I'm saying.
English and
I think anytime they teach English anywhere else, they teach the full shebang bang. And we're here in the country where it's our native language. Well, to a degree, it's...
No, it's our native language.
It's America's native language.
Let's get started on that.
Well, no. We weren't the first ones here, and they didn't speak English.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, as a nation...
It's the United States language.
Yeah, for sure. Not our original. It's not this nation. Well, it's this nation.
It's this nation's original language.
Okay. But even the English that we speak is not this nation's original English.
Well,
so we have our own version that the people that
it's
speak
a derivative.
The Queen's English.
Yes.
Find atrocious, because we've always been corner cutters.
Yes.
When it comes to language.
Yes.
But the point is, how do we take it less serious than people in other countries that are learning it as a second or a third language? That's where the question should start. And then again, when you want to get frustrated about where we're at academically, but we don't even want to put in a full effort to learn our own language, well, where do you expect us to be at with mathematics or history or poetry, any of these other things that everyone else just takes?
It's a lot of short buses in our future.
Serious. But it's scary. But again, when you're looking at 15 life skills that kids need to have before leaving home, and you have people that can argue against this in the comments, or people that can argue against just giving our kids a refined skill, right? Like cursive, this is where we're at. Yeah. And they will go to their grave arguing that it wasn't necessary. And it's it's a bigger conversation. You know what I mean?
A lot of what they teach in elementary school, even for us, is not necessary. I mean, how many people in their life are going to use geometry or algebra or trigonometry or, or proper English pronouns?
Hopefully everybody uses that. That would be nice.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm talking about just in the sense of writing.
It's the basic skills that you're learning in there, and it gives you the ability to go wherever you want. Joey's into math, Miranda's into English. Joey doesn't excel in English, and Miranda doesn't excel in math, but they learn the basic skills. And that's a basic skill. I don't get it. We're dumbing down our fucking kids.
But the podcast is called ManTFup.
Yeah.
So when I see somebody say, let's take it easy, why not put so much pressure on these kids and cause anxiety over things like how to be organized and plan, how to manage your time, how to swim, how to drive. Are you kidding me?
Man the fuck up.
Man the fuck up.
Yep.
I think there are kids out there that would see an adult say that and go, what a puss.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I hope that there are more of them, because at the end of the day, the more knowledge you have, the more skills you have, the more things you can do on your own, the more, again, empowered you feel. I will never understand the not wanting to drive thing. Again, I know we have the most anxious generation in the history of generations on our hands right now. And I know driving in South Florida in particular is not easy. It's not easy for experienced drivers. It's, it's frustrating.
Freedom.
Yes.
It's freedom.
Yes, that it is.
You are a teenager and you are bound by your parents driving you somewhere.
Yeah, or your friends or your older siblings or whomever.
Rachel's already like, I'm like, once Joey gets his license, we're never going to see him. Mm-hmm. Never going to see him. He's never going to be home. He's going to be gone.
I mean, literally, you could break down so many of these. Like, even, like, again, and it's crazy to me, though. Like, I'm looking at how to cook, right? There's so many videos on TikTok right now about cooking. Like, Instagram and TikTok have actually brought me back into the kitchen. And I've always cooked. But I love it now, and I snatch recipes, and I try to remake them and whatever. So I do think that we have kids that are getting into this field. I think you have a future generation of chefs and culinary artists and all of these things. And I love that. So it's like, again, to see adults
and it's a nice creative outlet, too.
1,000%. 1,000%. And it also teaches you to make do with what you've got, right? Like, not everybody is going to be out here cooking like Bobby Flay.
By the way.
What?
When you can open the refrigerator and make a meal out of whatever's in there.
Really, all you ever need is a bag of dry pasta. If you got some tomatoes and, your
whatever
basic seasonings.
Just scoop out the refrigerator, put it on the counter, mix it all together, cook it. It's a meal.
But I'm just like, and again, I realize not everybody is coming from the same financial background, but these are invaluable resources. So I will always look at what we have technologically and go, there's so many gifts that it's given us. But if you don't have the initial skill set to get into the kitchen, you know what I'm saying? Or you don't have parents that encourage you to do it, or you have parents that are so timid or such helicopter.
Or if the power's out for a couple weeks.
Well, no. But I'm talking more like the helicopter parent that doesn't want their kid in the kitchen because they're afraid they might burn themselves.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's like.
Yeah. You know when they're going to burn themselves? When you're not around.
Exactly.
Because you didn't teach them not to touch the pot on the stove.
Exactly. Well, especially with like induction stoves or just these glass top, you know what I mean? That you can't, the little red dot means it's still hot, guys. You know what I mean? Even if the buttons are turned to off. So I don't know. I felt that was a good, discussion to have, especially on this podcast when we talk about manning the fuck up and just, again, empowering your children to go forth as young adults. Again, nobody's saying they have to be perfect at everything. Nobody's saying that because you taught them how to drive, they're never going to get in a car accident or they're never going to get a speeding ticket. Nobody's going to say that you can teach them how to swim and they won't get caught in a rip current because they can't. Yeah. But guess what? They're much better equipped to deal with the day at the beach here in South Florida if they know how to swim than if they don't.
Yeah.
Forget the beach. A backyard barbecue that you're not at and the parents don't have enough eyeballs to watch all 32 kids that are jumping in and out of a pool. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get it. And then as a parent, to not feel that that's your responsibility is wild to me. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like for you take pride in your children being well-rounded children. You know, my mom was the same way.
I don't necessarily know that I've taught them everything they need to know going forward. I know I've given them a decent foundation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff they're going to have to learn on their own. I mean, I'm a firm believer of throwing your kid in the pool to teach them how to swim. A lot of people aren't into that. But, if you're standing there, the kid's not going to drown.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you he's going to swim.
I mean, you could traumatize them.
I mean, you could throw a dog. When you get a dog and you bring your dog home, how do you teach your dog how to swim? You throw them in the pool and you watch your dog and they swim. Mm-hmm. Automatically. They swim. It's like, what were they born with it? No. Mm-hmm. It is what it is.
Again, I think infants are a little more resilient in that space.
I mean, infants, I don't know about infants, but
that's when you teach. That's when when you do that.
You should.
When they're 4 and you do it to them and they understand trauma and like, why did my parents just try to kill me? A little different.
They learn really quick.
I highly recommend doing it with an 8-month-old. I'm just kidding. I mean, again, if you're there and in the pool or you toss them or you just, I mean, you blow in a baby's face and they hold their breath. I didn't learn that until I was like, 14 and I was like, wait, what? And they were like, yeah, that's how you wash their hair. And they go, you just dump the water down there, make sure it's not in their eyes. I love it. But again, please just empower your kids. And this isn't a judgment thing on parents because I know all of the Latin parents that I know, their kids got a broom and a mop in understand boys or girls by the time they're 4 or 5. They're up, on Saturday mornings when the salsa's going, cleaning with mom. So I think different cultures obviously prioritize certain life skills.
Those are career skills.
The views and comments of Leonard Novelli are not necessarily the views and comments of the ManTFup podcast. He is out there on his own on that one.
What?
Throw a phone at you. Like, just some things don't need to be, some things can stay in your brain, Len.
What?
You're right. They're
you
life
teach
skills.
your kids,
You know exactly what you said. And
whatever.
You said it. That would have been like, if you have a garden in the backyard and I was talking, look at you. You're ready to just jump right in. You're ready to jump right in. Let's wrap this up before Lenny just goes completely
off the rails.
Man overboard, yeah. Anyway, that's our ManTFup moment for the day, I guess. 15 life skills kids need before leaving home. If you've got any you would like to add to that, please feel free. Drop them in the comments. Would love to hear your take on this. If you're a kid who grew up not knowing these things, how did that impact you? Because there were some comments about that, and they were like, I wish I had known all of these things.
I wish I knew how to do my laundry.
Well, I mean, how do you send your kid off to their first apartment and they go into IKEA and the box shows up?
Forget it.
And they don't know how to pull it out and put it together. And their table falls apart.
It's ridiculous.
Or they've got leftover pieces and don't realize, everything was supposed to be utilized. But
Please
anyway.
comment on anything you see in this episode, you whiny bitches that don't think your kids need these skills.
Well, there you have it. That's episode 74 of the ManTFup. Like, subscribe, share, and follow, and we will be back next week when Lenny hopefully has some sense.
Peace.